Hello and welcome to A Celtic World. Good time for a cough. The YouTube channel for Celtic fans all over the world. And the day after yet another very disappointing result in the Champions League. In fact, it was the same day for me. I watched the game this morning, so not a recommended way to start the day. Our participants come from all over the world, as you can see. Paul, Western Australia. Hello, Paul.
Howdy.
Brian in Ireland. How's it going, Brian?
Not too bad, sir. Not too bad.
Not too bad. That's a very Northern-Irish response.
Not
too
Northern.
bad. Bad. Obviously bad. Bad
Well,
goes without saying. But not too bad. Bearable.
Bearable.
And
disappointing.
Kaiser, tell us where you are and what's the explanation behind the numbers and letters.
Oh, Kaiser, I'm in Ibrox, Glasgow, and it is -7, so it's freezing cold. You know, it's always
It's
it
28 today.
only bodes or -7 because of the how far behind they are is in the league, bro.
Oh, right, sorry.
Oh, I see. I thought it was
I see. I
temperature.
thought Scotland had got colder than usual for this time of year.
Oh, it's minus. It's always minus at Ibrox. It's either -4 or -7, -13. It rolls on. Good morning, legends, and everyone in chat. Good morning as well. Hail, hail. Thank you for being here.
Okay, so speaking of temperature and speaking of different times, these are the times that we're on. Monday and Thursday. Oh, that's incorrect again. God, I keep putting the wrong one up. It's now 9:30 if you're in Sydney because of daylight saving. But you can check those times, see what relates to wherever you are in the world. And as I say, we're only getting the channel going, so please consider subscribing. If you think we're producing something watchable, tell your friends all about this new and exciting Celtic YouTube channel. You can even share the stream or any of the shorter vids on YouTube with your friends and give them a taste of what we're all about. All right, so let's not delay the inevitable any further. We have to talk about last night. And I'm sure we're going to dig into all the pros and cons and what have you, but let's get our emotions out of the way first, shall we, before we get serious. Paul, how are you feeling?
I'm going to start by trying to keep it upbeat. I think there will be a fair amount of negativity across this show, I would imagine. And I've not looked at much other Celtic social media since the game finished. So I imagine there's been a lot of negativity kicking around. We've seen the movie before, sadly. But even I said last time when we got beaten in Rotterdam, we find new and novel ways to shoot ourselves in the foot and give ourselves some heartache, and we've done it again. I'll be honest, I didn't have VAR chop off potential winner, and then 6 minutes in injury time we lose the goal that finishes the match with absolutely zero time to respond. So we will get into the detail. I'm disappointed, probably not surprised. Been over this road far too many times. Each of these has got their own little differences. I don't know how much we can say, it's just an ongoing pattern. There's overarching stuff, obviously, but each of these teams are new and a lot of these players haven't been over this track before. So we feel it because we see it again and again and again, but I think we've got to give some benefit of the doubt to these players and Brendan Rodgers, because it's right at the start of a journey for this team in this group.
Okay, and then Brian, last time we spoke about a European game, you admitted you can't really watch Celtic in Europe, and you turned it off and went and made a cup of tea and took a few deep breaths out the window or something.
Well,
did you manage to make it through this whole game?
I made it through, yeah, and more in sort of respect to the likes of yourself and Paul, who would stay up to whatever time to watch the game. Yeah, I watched it right through, and I took 2 A4 pages of notes. And unlike the Celtic fans who left at the 94th minute when we were 1-1, I stayed to the bitter end, didn't watch any interviews. And backing up what Paul said, disappointing, but we can analyse it. The referee, I thought, was poor. There was a few marginal decisions, but my main concern was Yang. I thought Yang
Well,
was...
that's all specifics. Let's just deal with
Sorry,
top
specific.
level.
Emotion. Okay, emotions. I'm happy to be there. I've got no expectations in Europe. So if I don't have any expectations, I'm happy to get in, collect the money and go. But I think we are getting better.
That is depressing.
Believe it
Brian,
or not. I think
Brian,
we're getting better.
Brian, I've got a quick question. Is Peter Lawwell about to announce you on the board? Because that seems to be their expectation as well.
I don't know.
I don't disagree with you, mate. I don't disagree with you, but you know that could definitely be leveled at the board. But you know, I don't disagree with you. There's no expectation this season. There's a lot of mitigating factors.
Yeah, there are 3 players on the pitch that should never be there,
and we'll get into that
level. But there's no point getting annoyed because I can see the green shoots of recovery, and I can see what Brendan's trying to do, and I think we're on the right track. Believe it or not, you know, we didn't get chinned 6-0. We were in control of the game. It was just unlucky. A couple of marginal factors, and I think we'd have a different result.
Kaiser, where are your emotions at?
Well, last night, watching the game, unbridled rage and frustration. I was throwing punches at fresh air. I don't mind being honest about it. You know what I mean? I was sick of the same old story, down to repeat your failures if you never learn from them. And it's one thing I keep hearing echoed from the squad is we're learning, we're going to learn for this and understand it's a newly put together squad repeating the same old story of Glasgow Celtic in Europe, which is unbefitting. All I want is a bag of cans and the Lisbon Lions back. I mean, seriously, somebody parachute me back to 1967, please, where I can march around Europe with my head held high. That being said, I do think the squad is learning. We are evolving. We dominated large sections of the game, and I was quite proud of the players and the effort they put in. And yet again, sucker punch, last minute, well into extra time anyway, sucker punched in the face. So all too indicative of what I've come to understand is Glasgow Celtic's performances in Europe, which is disheartening. But as Brian highlighted, I can see the green shoots of recovery. I can see your team can definitely compete at that level. And if the board had matched the ambitions of the support and truly backed the manager, and there's still time to do that. Maybe not this year. Who knows how the group's going to progress? But there's definitely still time to fully back the manager and invest in this team. I mean, you look around the squad and there's earmarks all over it of quality, and just with a bit more quality, we could really compete at this level and win these games.
I'm just looking through the comments here, and there's a number of positive comments, there's a number of negative comments, and I agree with all of them. I mean, our heads are full of positives and negatives, aren't they?
Yes.
So,
and Brian is in no way Tory enough to join the board.
These will stimulate some chat. Celtic showed we have the class to more than compete in the Champions League. Well, I think we've shown that we deserve to be there, whether we deserve to get any points or not. All past 2 games do is bring it to sharp focus just how well we'd have done had the board backed the manager. So even in that one comment, there's a positive and a negative. And I think you can't really emphasize one and ignore the other. So that's fair enough, wouldn't you say, Paul?
Yeah, it's spot on. We've talked about some of the things that have happened to the squad that have put us in this position. Jota, I don't think anyone expected him to be going in the summer, and you can't replace a player of that quality without spending similar amounts of money as to what we took in for him, and we're never going to do that. So players got fast-tracked, like Yang. He's not expected to be starting Champions League football this season, but now he is. So that's one thing. We've had, 5-6 injuries to centre-backs. It's just a ludicrous amount of issues. Interestingly enough, the 3 areas that most people thought they needed to address was left back, goalkeeper, and striker made absolutely zero difference in this match. So, and probably the last one either. So, whilst I agree that there should have been those areas addressed, it's there's a lot of mitigating factors as to where we find ourselves at this point in time. But yeah, undoubtedly, if the board, well, look, not undoubtedly, the board could have gone out and spent 8 to 10 million on 2 extra players. One of them, at least one of them, could have been injured before this, as Cameron Carter-Vickers, our 8 to 10 million, possibly more valued player, did before we came into the tournament, and he's rushed back, and then ultimately he makes a mistake. So look at the other results around Europe in the Champions League in the last 2 nights.
I'm
That's what I would
interested in
say.
the other results. Let's go back to the point that you made.
Hang on. It's Gav. It's totally valid, because teams like Man United getting beaten at home to Galatasaray on infinitely higher budgets than us. It's not a given that if you spend 10, 15, 20, 30 million more, you automatically become a team that is going to compete at this level. So as frustrating as it is for us fans, I think we put a good account of ourselves out last night with the personnel that are available. It wasn't the personnel that we all hoped and would have expected to start if everyone was fit. Never mind if imaginary other players had been retained or purchased. It's the very start of a journey, and he's had a rocky road. I mean, the manager, in terms of what he's had to deal with in the first few weeks of the season. But there was, to Brian and Kaiser's point, there's enough green shoots there that I'm reasonably positive about where this group of players goes from here. But they do need further investment. And there's a much broader discussion about why we're sitting on that lump of cash, and there's multiple reasons why it could be the case.
Okay.
And we're not going to get into that right now. But I think there's a lot of negativity in the immediate aftermath of the result, and that was anger. And I think I saw Red Scotland say the fact we were angry means we were on the right track, and I agree with him.
Yeah, just quickly on the point of the players that we didn't sign, even though there were clear priorities, everybody knew it, those 3 positions. I think it's a bit facile just to say because none of the key incidents involved those positions. Therefore, it would make no difference if we had a strong, dominant, vocal goalkeeper that can come for crosses and dominate the box and has good reflexes and all that. If we had a left back that wasn't targeted by teams like Lazio, the amount of diagonals going down to Taylor's position was crazy.
That's all true, but
and a striker that could come
from
on
that area
and give us a degree of confidence that something might happen with this striker, rather than coming on and not giving us any hope. Those were, if you go back to the last season, those were the 3 positions that we really needed to strengthen, and none of that was done. We could be a totally different outfit had that been the case, and that kind of confidence permeates throughout the team. So, we can't just brush that off and say that wouldn't have made any difference to last night.
Hang on. That's not what I said. I said that wasn't what was the key areas where we were missing last night that caused ultimately goals win in turn matches, and the players and positions we're talking about aren't what caused the goals last night.
Okay. Just looking at the comments here, Cara, imagine how devastated the players are feeling. It's nice to have a bit of feminine softness there to counteract all this testosterone. Poor players. Red Scotland, I'm very proud of Celtic and the players and the manager. Only positives for me. Strange love the doctor. I thought we were good last night. We played the better football. We looked a better team. We deserved to win the game. I would have been disappointed in a draw. We haven't started going through the game chronologically or anything. Should we do a bit of that? Should we talk about? Let's go to Brian.
Let's do a bit of that.
Let's go to Brian.
I've got some notes too. Even at 3 a.m.
Starting lineup. What were the surprises? Yang was the only surprise for me. I had Palma starting. Anyone add to that?
No, same.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian, first half, events of note.
Events of note were in the first 10 minutes, Atati had 4 loose passes. And to me, Taylor was being targeted over the top. Felipe Anderson, long ball up to him. Again, the goal, there was a couple of opportunities at the very, very start before Kyogo scored. And Yang could have shot, but decided not to, which was, again, you can put it down to inexperience or maybe an inferior player, but I thought Scales was doing a lot of cleaning up of the work that Taylor potentially should have been doing, but the guy's only 5'8", so but we were looking good at that stage. And Johnston, I thought, was very, very comfortable. Kyogo scores, amazing. Great work from O'Reilly. I thought O'Reilly was 11 out of 10 this evening. And I thought that the man, how he come off the pitch, he must be so annoyed because that was a stellar performance. That's one of the best performances I've seen a Celtic player in a long time in Europe. I thought he was immense. So we're talking first half, Taylor, a few misplaced passes. Again, I'm going to the 18th minute here. The VAR decision on Atate. Thought he was assaulted, basically. It could have been, it could have got a wee bit more rub of the green. The referee, I mean, the guy...
Here's the Atate incident, Brian, if you look up.
Yeah. I mean, he got assaulted. I think it was 2. Yeah, there's the first attempt, right? He tries it there, misses, and then goes again, hits him.
And he hits him with a strong arm and a clenched fist, and that is not a little.
So there's the first one, and there's the second one, and yet he didn't get booked. And I think it was a drop ball afterwards. It's
a borderline red. It's a borderline red. Yeah. He knows what he's doing. I can't believe VAR never even looked at it. The ref basically told VAR, I think the commentary I was listening to was on Stan Sports in Australia, and the commentator basically said, the ref's spoken to, like, he's in his mic, he's seen it in real time, he doesn't need it looked at. So this is a young ref. I think he's only about 35. I think he said it was his 3rd Champions League game. I think he refereed the other lot against that Swiss outfit that I always think of a napkin. Servette, yeah. But he's had very little experience at this, and I thought he had a mixed game on both sides. For me, AJ should have been booked inside 8 minutes or 6 minutes or whatever it was. That sliding lunge tackle, you do that later in the game, that's it's a definite yellow. And I think it's what I'm saying is it should have been looked at, and then if it's looked at, it's down to interpretation. Does he look intentionally? I think it is a red card. But
yeah, he went twice.
I've seen people on social media saying, "Oh, that's not why we lost the game." But hang on, if the other team, as we found out last week, if you go down to 10 men in the Champions League, it's a pretty tall order to try and stay in the match. So in 18 minutes, so they've got to play the rest of the match with 10 men. They'd have just dropped even further deeper. Basically, most of the second half, they just tried to defend. They were happy with a point, and then obviously attempt to nick one on the counter, which ultimately they ended up doing. I agree with you, Brian, to some degree. I think Scales, whilst he was doing some mopping up, some of it was from his own mess. There was a couple where he headed the ball like back into the play, and it sort of broke the Lazio players, and then they had the ball, and he was the one at the end of it. But he's our highest pass stat of 91%. It's the other 9% I was concerned about, because quite often that put us in a bit of trouble. But generally, he was pretty solid for he's not used to performing at that level. Look, we never really got a sniff of the ball until we came alive in about the 9th minute and knocked it around for about 90 seconds, bit of deflections here and there, but we worked it across the pitch. We got up the other end, and then we went a corner after a good bit of attack and play, which is the Yang incident I think you're talking about. That eventually eventuates in a corner from Matt O'Reilly. That's a pretty poor corner that drifts across all the way to the right touchline. But after that, and I put this on Twitter, I counted it at half-time. I went back, because the coverage we get here is crap. So I went back to the match and found it and counted up. We had 17 passes from Hatate catching it on the far touchline from Matt O'Reilly's overhit corner. And then we basically worked the ball all the way back to the left, all the way back to the right. Maeda comes alive. That burst of pace puts him in. O'Reilly gets it, and it's a brilliant turn around the corner. Then Kyogo is just calmness personified to tuck it away. And it's an absolutely brilliant goal. And to me, a lot of people talk about where Rodgers is slow, it's methodical, it's boring. This is what he's trying to achieve. When he moves the ball like that and retains it till he finds an opening, and then we step up the pace. we absolutely carved them apart, and they were a team set up to defend, and we know what the Italians are like that. I thought it was an absolutely brilliant goal, and a little glimpse that we've not seen very much of, I don't think, of what Rodgers is trying to implement, and it will take time. You know, a lot of these guys are new, and a lot of these guys have been drilled on Ange ball for the last 2 years. So, yeah, it was the highlight of the half, but we never really caught momentum from there, and obviously they got themselves back into it.
Yeah, now their goal came from a corner. I don't know about you, but every time we win a corner, my excitement level goes up by a factor of 0.
Yeah.
And that's not what normally happens when you're watching football. It's like, oh, I've got a corner. Got a chance to put it in the mixer. Anything could happen. Nothing ever happens. They put it in the mixer. It bounces around. It's bloody ugly and agonizingly goes over the line. How bad was that, Kaiser?
Yeah, it was horrendous. Once again, as we've said over and over again, those 3 key positions we mentioned, right, left back, goalkeeper and striker. To be clear, I was looking for a striker of aerial prowess, someone who's good in the air, someone who can capitalise on these corners that Celtic aimlessly hit and endlessly win. The excitement factor raises by a scale of 0.0.0. Just not expecting anything at all when we get a corner, let alone a free kick. Sometimes they seem to generate a goal or an effort, a shot at goal, and you're looking for the break of the ball in the second ball. But we seem to really, really waste these opportunities, because that is one of the key factors in these games, as we've seen, exploiting your opportunities from corners and throw-ins, even long throw-ins. We've seen teams do it before. Exploiting that opportunity, being up the pitch and capitalising on it. You know what I mean? We have no one. I think Matt O'Reilly is one of the tallest players in the team, and he's a guy hitting the corners. And undoubtedly, some of these crosses, I'm like, that's a quality cross. That is crying out for someone to attack the ball. But both in defence and in attack, we have no one who attacks the ball. There is no aerial threat. There is no aerial prowess. There is no aerial defender who is meeting the balls, getting there. Joe Hart does not command his area. Goalkeeping area, once again, addressed. He does not command his area. He does not come out to meet crosses. He does not defend crosses. He stands on his line. For their goal, I think, as harsh as I would be on Joe Hart, right, and I can be pretty harsh on Joe Hart at times, seem to react quite slowly. But even me looking at it, I was expecting better contact from the player and maybe the ball to go higher into the roof of the net. He kind of scuffed it off his forehead and the ball went lower. So Joe was slow to drop his hand and react to that save and save that ball. But looking at it, I'm like, sheesh, man, I could have saved that. And which seems to be the case quite a lot of the times. But I suppose that's it for everybody. When you're watching at home, you're like, my nana could have scored that. I could have saved that. I do think we were excellent attacking in the way we played.
Kaiser, as per this comment from Paddy Lavery, you're everywhere but the crib mate, so you would have gotten to that.
Yeah.
And listen, I have to tell you something. Although this is we're picking apart the bones of a defeat, I have to tell you that I'd set myself a couple of little informal targets for this channel to see how much we were progressing. And one of them was the first time I see Paddy Lavery in the comments, and it has happened tonight, so it's very exciting. So I just want to raise a glass to that. It's the first time we've had Paddy in. Paddy's from the Ardoyne.
It's a light flex.
And
welcome, Paddy.
There's also somebody else of note. Keith from Come On the Hoop Celtic says hello. How's it going there,
Let's
Keith?
go, Keith.
Hey, Keith.
So it gives us a little break from picking over the bones of this carcass. All right, so it was 1-1.
Gav,
we went in at half time.
Sorry, Gav. Can I have one little minor grumble?
No,
with
Paul, you
Kaiser's
can't.
analysis?
You've had all the grumbles. You've overtalked over.
I'm just
Gav
going to
twice.
say no goalkeeper comes for crosses these days. It's not the modern game. Zero goalkeepers come for crosses. They stay on the line, and the defenders are supposed to deal with crosses, especially on set pieces. So those days are gone, my friend.
Paul, right? I do get that, Paul, right? But say Joe Hart is 6'4", right? right? So 6'4", he can jump 1 foot in the air. He's now 7'4". He extends his arms. He's now 8'4". Who is 8'4"? No one. He should come out and claim every ball. He's got the aerial advantage of using his hands.
You can say that for any goalkeeper. It doesn't happen in the modern game. It's done, right? They stay on the line. The defenders deal with crosses. They try and save it. That's how it works. We're not. It's a waste of breath.
Philly, they're looking at that. Then Phillips was solely responsible for conceding that goal. Then, because Phillips left his man, he should have been marking him. If Joe Hart's supposed to retain on his line and defend the line, then Phillips should have been picking up that man and did not. So
I'm not disagreeing. We did, but we as a unit, we defended our box appallingly, as we often do. We did against Motherwell on the weekend. Their goal, people standing around looking at each other and watching players run past them. So we need to be better from set pieces.
And I do think what was mentioned as well, Paul, the attacks coming down the left-hand side, always on Greg Taylor's side. I don't think it's always just indicative of Greg Taylor, because questions get asked of him, right? Questions get asked of him, and he keeps coming up with answers. It's indicative of the entire left side of the pitch. If Maeda's not there and tracking back and covering for Greg Taylor,
exactly.
Rio Hatate's complete lack of chasing back and effort, and the amount that he's been off form is unbelievable as well. So it's indicative of the entire left side of the field.
Well, it's also Yang's job, right? So we've lost, and I agree with you absolutely. Taylor's getting it in the neck, but with Taylor's job in the formation as it now seems to be is back to being inverting and pulling into midfield. So he can't be a traditional left back. So really, he needs his left wing to be covering, and he needs his left centre back to be covering. So that's Scales, and in this case, Yang. And this is where you miss Maeda, right? Maeda's on the right hand side, where Yang's only really played on the right. I know he preferred to play on the left and cut in on his right, but the games we've seen him, he's played on the right, and Maeda stuck to his normal position for whatever reason. And I presume it was tactical. It was obviously tactical. There was obviously a concern on maybe the left back, and that's why Maeda's on there to try and quell him or to protect that side of the pitch. But what it meant is Taylor's side didn't get the protection. And you're right, he does get targeted because he's short, and they were pinging balls in behind. Now, they never really came off. They all sort of went too far or drifted out of play. But I don't think you're right. You've got to work as a unit, and you can't blame Taylor for everything that came down that side.
No,
sorry.
Taylor, I didn't have a problem with too much. I'll just ask you a quick question. The two players that frustrated me the most, whose names were shouted out at my TV with some colourful language either side, were Yang and Hatate. Is that the same experience for all of us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think Yang's out of his depth, and it's not really that fair on him because he shouldn't be at this level yet. But Hatate has underperformed. He got better in the second half until he was hooked. He had some nice bits of play and some good ball. He had a couple of balls over the top.
It's good, but he wasn't up to touch of the ball here.
He wasn't up to his usual standards. Sorry.
Again, looking at my notes, I put down Yang and then decision making ? So I think his decision making with a couple of opportunities, he should have maybe had a shot first time. Again, Hatate, a lot of not tracking back and a lot of misplaced passes. But we all know about the risk reward with Hatate. I've put down another significant incident in the 44th minute was when Kyogo got manhandled. I don't know if anyone noticed that one.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at sliding doors moments, the assault on Hatate, that basically they could go down to 10 men. We're 1-0 up, and hopefully their game plan wouldn't have led to their goal. And then potentially the Kyogo, I think he got assaulted in the 44th minute. I don't know if any of you saw it, but it was significant enough to take notes on it. But did anyone see that one, the 44th minute?
Yeah,
Kyogo getting bent.
Yeah, he got sort of wrestled, kind of, and pulled down.
Would you put a card out for that, Paul?
It's probably a yellow. You'd say it's a yellow.
Yeah.
The other thing that happened in the 44th minute is AJ knocked one over the top, and Maeda was in, and he didn't quite get a finish away, which and then that Phillips is booked for nearly nothing at right on half time, and I think that was for an arm.
Yeah. Sorry, I saw some notes from someone who was at the game earlier today. and they were saying if you'd seen Scales and Phillips together, and you were told one of them was up from Liverpool and has Champions League experience, and the other, has the background of Scales, you wouldn't have known which was which. Scales looked like a far more composed and accomplished player, comfortable on the ball, all the rest of it. So he's been incredible these past few games, hasn't he? It's extraordinary.
Yeah. Undaunted at the challenge. I think Scales has been, whatever challenges came since Ibrox, that's obviously challenged him to step in at Ibrox, and moving forward through that, any challenge that's been presented to him, he's just overcame.
And so we want to see CCV back in the team, obviously. He comes back. Brendan said he wouldn't risk him if he wasn't 100%. He came on for, at what time of the game? Was it about 60-something minutes?
61 minutes, yeah, for Phillips.
And what did he do apart from lose possession critically at the end? He was pretty comfortable?
No, I did quite. I thought he did quite a lot. I actually just noted that he'd had a pretty composed and solid. There was a couple of really good defensive headers. There's one where he gets kicked in the head and puts his body on the line, which is great. And then there's one really late on, literally, I think the 92nd or 93rd minute, the ball comes into the box and he gets his head on it and clears it well into space. And I think to himself, yeah, he's like, he's dealt with this pretty well since he's come back, and he's obviously not. It's going to be a bit rusty. And then sure enough, 2 minutes later, he dwells on the ball, and that was that. But
yes, he got kicked in the head. O'Reilly nearly got kicked in the head and appealed for it at the time. Do you remember after the first European game, McGregor was talking about how the referees don't let you away with much at this in Europe, and then that happens. All those events happen. Crazy, wasn't it?
Yeah, Castellanos, he was the guy with the high boot again. I think he did eventually get booked at the end. But did anyone notice last night, whenever CCV came on, the distance between him and Scales? CCV almost pushed out to it was almost the right corner of the box, and Scales, so they were able to pass the ball longer. Maybe I'm overanalyzing it, but I thought Phillips and Scales were very close to each other, and that worked out better for getting the ball forward. Just something I noticed. Again, it was the space, the confidence to move into space, if you know what I mean. CCV. So I noticed that.
He's really calm and composed on the ball. He played a few nice ones up the line. He was pretty much a faultless comeback from injury until the major debacle. And I don't know, he just dwells on it. It's just right to me. It's just rustiness. That late in the game, it's you put your blazes through it and get rid. But for whatever reason, he gets caught, and there we go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is there anything else we want to talk about the game?
Palma coming on.
Okay, let's talk.
Palma comes on 61st minute, and immediately the ball was sticking to his feet, and he was very. I just thought it was a different dynamic altogether. He never wasted the ball. He had that bit of, excuse my French, he had a bit of balls on the ball. You know what I mean? He wasn't worried. Every time you hang at the ball, it was like a hot potato. Whereas Palma wanted the ball, and he made a couple of runs. I'm looking here, Scales overhead kick. If anyone saw that, but I just thought Palma was fantastic on the ball. Scores the goal, which on another day could have been given. Yeah, he gets booked for selling. He got
fans on Twitter, slowing down that clip, and you see the ball drifts over Maeda's foot, and they're like, "Where was the contact?" And, for Christ's sake, he did touch it. Clearly, he touched it. Right? Everyone here knows he touched it. Is that correct?
Yeah, the original angle was shocking, but there was a second angle eventually, which was blatantly clear he knocked it.
The referee chose to use VAR when it suited Lazio. There should be any contentious decisions. Let's get it used. Again, this should have rescinded the yellow card for celebration, because he celebrated a goal that wasn't. I don't know. I'm being a dick.
I was thinking
Sorry.
that myself. I sort of thought that
But
myself.
do you know what I
because
mean? It's
everything that flows after the bad
Yeah.
call gets rescinded. So if
Well,
someone
apparently
scores
not.
and you know there's someone offside, you go over and smack him,
Apparently not,
Damn.
though. So
and then that gets
on
rescinded.
again on the Aussie coverage and Stan Sport, well, it wasn't Aussie coverage, but their channel, they were pulling up a different commentator from the Scottish coverage or whatever. They very quickly said that will stand because you take your shirt off anywhere on the pitch at any point in time. It's a yellow.
Everything has to stand. But it was quite funny. I saw, well, not funny, tragic, but Twitter handles from the other side of the city showing all the different celebrations that Palma did after that goal. Shirt off, holding his shirt up, doing a heart. I don't know if he danced, whatever. He did a whole bunch of things, and then it was all for nothing.
But he had the balls, Gavin. He had the balls to say, "This is my shirt." If what would Yang probably would shit himself.
I
Excuse my
think he's
French.
got a lot
If
of
he
potential.
scored, I think we need that bit of South American steel to come in and you know, I'm looking at the comments here. Why Mickey put up? Why didn't Palma have a crack on goal? I would just give the ball to Palma from now on and go, "You're our set piece man," and get Matt O'Reilly into the box.
Mickey's talking about from free kicks, because he can score.
Yeah, free kicks. He can score.
Yeah, he was touted as a dead ball specialist, was he not? Indeed, he was.
To be fair, that free kick was well worked. Rio hit a good shot, and look,
Yeah.
Meira gets in too early. If he just holds his position, but he gets over eager and he's in and he's past the ball when the keeper pans it out. If he just holds his run, he's got a tap in, but unfortunately not.
It's not like Maeda to get overexcited at the critical moment.
No, never.
There you go. JK27 thinks we're being harsh on young Yang. Cara,
It's not his fault he's been thrown in, but he's not ready.
For me, I think Palma's main competition on the left-hand side is Maeda. It's not Yang. And like Paul hinted at earlier on, maybe Maeda being on the right was more tactical. Rather than to neutralise Lazio's left back, I think it was more indicative of the way we scored our goal and Maeda's pace and exploiting their left back. So imagine Yang being on the right-hand side, like we've seen him recently. Sure, the left-hand side would have been more resolute, but we didn't really lose any goals from that side of the park, as Paul has already said earlier on as well. None of that incidents down that side of the pitch led to Lazio really scoring. So I do think that was tactically very aware from Brendan as well, showing that we can adjust, be tactically astute, pick out positions to exploit in other teams, the way they can pick out positions to exploit in us. And as we said, or as I said, they keep asking questions of Greg Taylor and he keeps coming up with answers. When Greg Taylor does invert and push into midfield, Liam Scales coming across, covering, doing excellent. As we spoke about there and all, when CCV comes on, I do think he's a lot calmer, a more calming influence. He's found a home at Celtic, obviously. Seemed to spread out the back line a lot more, and we had those little triangles of play. Certainly seen Callum McGregor pick up the ball more, and it's one thing that I never see is really exploiting out of defence too often is passing it to Callum McGregor. That's what he's there for on the half turn, to move forward and push us forward. Always seen, and I've seen Liam Scales not afraid to take the ball and break the line himself, knock it forward and run out from defence. That was stellar, and his passing was also stellar. He never lost any real balls. One, I seen him cut out later in the game, and he passed it out into a kind of dangerous area in the middle of the pitch, but it never came to nothing. But that was the only time I really looked at Scales and thought that was the wrong move to make there, passed into a dangerous area. Unlike Hatate, who every time he got the ball seemed to pass it nowhere, and Yang, who seems to be a runaway train going nowhere, which is, you may say it is harsh on Yang. He is thrown in. He has not really had a millennia to settle like other players under the previous manager, he who shall not be named in front of Gav in case he sets me on fire. Under the previous manager, he would have been saying these players need 6 months to settle. Yang's been brought in and put straight in, which I don't fault his effort. I think he's meeting the benchmarks as far as effort is concerned. Just if he just relaxes just a little bit and realises every touch doesn't need to be a worldie. Every goal doesn't need to be a worldie. You don't need to skin every player, rather than running like a headless chicken, than looking more like, who is he training with? Is Maeda his forward coach? Is Harry Kewell doing nothing? You know what I mean? We've got a winger in the coaching staff of the experience who should be helping these players. So for me, yeah, indicative of a few things going wrong, indicative of us failing to spend the kind of money on the kind of quality that was needed. Bringing in project players, those are players that come to Celtic to be better, to make themselves better, rather than and opposed to players that we sign that instantly make us better. They make us better. We don't make them better.
Well, let's talk about that. As Stephen says here, it was a good game. Even Stephen, there's lots of positives to be taken from it. But it is the same old story. 2 games played, 0 points, bottom of the table. Personally, my ambitions for Europe were revised at the end of the transfer window, and I thought, well, we're not going to kick on. And hold on. And my only hope was that Brendan Rodgers would prove to be a more savvy manager in Europe than Ange. And that might still be the case, but I don't have high expectations, put it that way. And just before we go to Brian, Street Shouter leaves a comment here in capital letters. I won't read it out in case there's any children listening, but it includes the word fuck. That was a little joke. Okay, Brian.
Your favourite player, Gav, I think it was 80 odd minutes, comes on. And to me, I don't know. He's not he got a couple of fouls and then he tried a bit too hard. Would you prefer Giacomakis? We can't be looking behind ourselves and all the rest of it, but we need some. O's not the man. O's empty shirt as far as I'm concerned. We bought the wrong one. We put him out on loan. I don't know where we would put him. Put him out to Motherwell. Put him. I just don't think it's all his endeavour and hard work and all, but he's clearly not a footballer.
Well, I can hear Paul's mind working here and saying, "Come on, he's young. You give him time, he'll come good." That's all true. That's all fine, but it's true for all of our players. As Stephen McDonald says here, you have one good team for 1 year. All about the money. The greater point is this: it's we learn from it. It's inexperience. It's naivety. I expect Hatate and O'Reilly to be gone by this time next year. So these players who are gaining Champions League experience are going to be gone. We're always going to be fielding a bunch of young, naive players in the Champions League. Tell me that's not so, Paul.
I don't disagree with you, which is one of the reasons why I feel like I'm a lot calmer than a lot of our support, because what is our let's be brutally honest. What's our take the hope and
just
dreams.
Give us a win.
Well, yeah, okay, but realistically, what is our expectation at this level? Because you're right, we've got and the comment Stephen McDonald's right as well. We've got a team for a year. You barely got experience. Then it's ripped apart. Sometimes you've got a new manager as well, and then you've got to try and go again with teams with massive more budgets than yourself. Mostly, you're relying on a fair whack of luck and players setting absolutely immediately, which doesn't always happen. The board can absolutely do more, and they should be held accountable for more. But in their defense, and I'm rarely want to defend the board, is they're going, well, we could spend another 20, 30, 40 million, and we might be in exactly the same boat with 2 or 3 points in one win or a win and a draw, and we're out anyway. So yeah, we had a bit of a celebration for one night only, but it didn't achieve anything else. We're getting the money anyway. I think where you look at the teams to look at, and this comes down to scouting, and this is Lal Junior's job and the team, and that they're still relatively new in role as well. So let's give them a bit of a time frame to get to it. Is there are teams out there in Europe with a smaller budget than us, or about the same budget as us, buying 19, 20, 21-year-old players who are Champions League ready. They just are. They're quality, and we're seeing it like teams like RB Salzburg and others are buying players and they're getting them in the team and they're getting results that you otherwise wouldn't expect. So that, to me, that's where I don't think the budget needs to go up necessarily. It'd be lovely to spend a bit more money, but I don't necessarily think the budget goes up. I think we need to spend it better. That's my honest opinion.
That's certainly true. Well, look, we've talked about the game for 45 minutes, so let's bring it to a close.
Can I say one last thing? Can I just ask everyone's opinion on Bernardo? What?
No idea.
I thought there was a little bit there that gave me a little bit of hope. He was neat and tidy. He didn't look overawed. He didn't waste too many balls. And yeah, look, he's not had very much at all to go on. But I thought it was a decent cameo without setting the heather on fire.
Okay, I'm going to close the conversation on the game with this sort of positive note. I was thinking about it. Football fans are only happy in two circumstances, right? One, when they're basking in the glory of winning things, and the other is when they're dismayed at how they're perennial losers and the board don't share their ambition. With Celtic, you get both of those things. So isn't that awesome? All right, that'll do. That'll do.
That's definitely a glass half full.
Okay, and let's talk about something else that has, well, it depends how you look at it, but a decision was arrived at by one of our former heroes to retire. Kaiser, why don't you start us talking about everyone's favorite mispronounced footballer, Tom Rogic?
Yeah, Big Tom deciding to retire. I believe he cited his family as a reason, something that all of us can understand. Well, assuming all of us have families, I certainly do have a family. I have young children of my own, and I can understand Tom's decision. Would I have loved to have seen him come back up the road? Of course, but that's just the romanticism of Celtic and how much Tam was a legend for Celtic. He came, played very well, iconic player, scored some big goals. Really personified, as Gav was saying there, the love and hate relationship with Celtic. Sometimes when Rogic was on form, he was unstoppable, and other times he was unstartable. We did accuse him of having one lung at some stages, rather than two, due to his lack of fitness and how slow he was at times. But yeah, on the whole, an excellent player, an excellent servant to the club, and I'm sure share the sentiments with most Celtic fans who really appreciated him.
Here's something that Highland Paddy says. We highlighted Highland Paddy, his Twitter handle last week. Tom Rogic is retired, a player I would have paid money just to see him train. Gave me one of the greatest moments watching our club in the Invincible season. Life is bigger though, and the joy a family brings to him and his wife can't be measured. And that really is an iconic moment, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right there.
Look at the size of the feet. The rumours are size 15. I know you're thinking it's what we're sitting at 48 minutes and Brian hasn't lowered the tone yet. Is it true he's a size 15 feet? Anybody? I remember hearing he's size 15 feet. Look at the size of the man's feet. Like, again.
Like you driving it, Brian? What else?
No, I'm just saying he's big feet, big shoes, big socks.
Yeah.
No, again, a great player. I look back at the game. Remember, didn't he score 2 goals against Milan? We went 2 up. Was it? Remember under Lenny? He was the kind of player we could have done with last night, keeping the hold of the ball. Again, fantastic player. I look back at the Kilmarnock goal. That saved it. Wasn't that the goal that saved Lennon's career? His managerial first time.
Yeah.
Just a great player, foot on the ball, vital goals, big game player. Basically, there's games away to Dundee or something, he would have been absolute. There we go, Gav. Lovely. Look at that. Unreal.
Stick a size 15 on that, Brian.
Size 15. There we go. I'm going to check it out. I think he is size 15.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely a scorer of very important goals and gave us loads of moments, but as Kaiser kind of alludes to there, he didn't come without his frustrations. He didn't deliver
Yes.
that consistently, but it's a bit churlish to sort of focus on that when you can focus on all these wonderful moments.
Well, it's a bit
And
like
most of the
Miera, innit?
games-
If I was just going to say, it's a bit like Miera. If he's got the full package, he never has the career he has at Celtic. He's off somewhere else and getting paid a lot more money at a much higher level. I saw somebody in the comments put my John Clements, transplant Miera's lungs into Tom Rogic and get him back. Like if he had that work rate, he would have been playing at the
have been at the
absolutely.
top of the
Sorry,
game.
guys. Sorry. He's size 14. Apologies.
There you go.
14.
Well, he managed to wrap those size 14s around quite a few really important goals. But for me, look, I haven't got my own family unless you count 2 dogs, which I do, and a wife. But
For
I've
babies.
got really close friends that have been through the IVF journey, and it's a heartbreaking thing to go through. And we were there with them right through that. So for them to go through that and get out the other side with what they wanted, and we've all been critical of our board, Law, and Dermot Desmond. There's a little tip of the hat because his comments around that was really kind of heartwarming to say that they stepped in and actually, put a bit of a human side to it and helped him out there. So yeah, 30 years old, you'd expect a career to go a lot longer, but I think he's probably achieved everything he was ever going to achieve, and he's had an amazing career both for Celtic predominantly, but also Australia. He's a legend down here, and people are really disappointed that both him and Aaron Moy have retired in such a close proximity. So yeah, I there's people on Twitter that have been around 50-60 years, and they put that moment of the treble against Aberdeen as their most their most famous Celtic moment, or the thing that they remember most. So it's a pretty amazing legacy to leave. So yeah, fair play to Big Tam. Great player.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Lil Z, whose post that was on Twitter. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, he's only 30, he shouldn't be retiring," but we
He's got a
don't
big career in
appreciate.
Finder.
Well, that's true. It's Paddy Lovely's referencing that.
He's got a big career there in Finder.
But I was going to make a point about the amount of sacrifice that these guys have to put up with. I didn't read this. I went to school with a guy who had to get shoes custom made. His feet were so big. He was size 15 or above. Said it didn't translate to his breeks though. Okay.
What's breaks?
really-
Breaks strides.
Yeah, his pants.
The contents of
Didn't
his
he
trousers.
translate
Yeah.
to the
Strides.
big socks?
Yeah.
The
Didn't
trousers.
look
The trousers.
Those trousers.
Yes. But as I look around the windows here of our chat, I don't think any of us have lived a life of extreme discipline and physical exertion like
How
he
dare you.
has, and sacrificing. The amount of sacrifices they have to make, it's crazy. So by the time, if you get to 30 and you've achieved all these incredible things, I mean, fair enough.
I think
Put your
more
feet
than-
up.
I've only let myself go in the last 15 years. You should have seen me when I was 30.
Yeah. I think more than the lackluster days or the cold Inverness in the rain, we remember those key moments and the big memories that Rogic clearly brought. Fantastic striker of the ball, fantastic finisher at times, gifted midfielder, absolute legend down under, and would group him in and say a legend at Celtic. Certainly in the future, we'll think back on him fondly. As I'm sure.
He loved the goal.
Okay, let's move it on.
He loved the goal against them lot as well, didn't he?
Yes, he
Well,
did.
speaking of them lot, let's have a quick little laugh about the Rangers manager situation. Now, not last week, on Monday's show when we had Tony on, we revealed that little video about Stephen Davis in the bar in Rome. And obviously that went quite big on the socials and things like that. And I just got a call earlier from my brother who said he was on the bus. I think he said coming up from Dublin to Belfast, and he went onto the Belfast Live website, as he is wont to do, only to press play on this that was featured on it and hear a voice that he recognized. And I hadn't told him or anybody else about a Celtic world. and he couldn't believe it. So that was fun. That's how he
Your
discovered
guilty secret, Gav.
you're doing this. Yeah. So here's some pictures and fun to be had. Neil Warnock, who I reckon is probably, I think he's the one that makes the most sense because he'd be nice and cheap. He doesn't care about his CV. He can come up, be a disaster. He doesn't give a toss, crack a few heads together. There's this fella.
Oh, brilliant.
Jeez.
Brilliant.
He's thrown his hat in the ring. This fella, who's
Yep.
had a very successful managerial career. And this fella, that's him saying he thought it would work out at Rangers and he started to leave after a year. Apparently he had a Zoom call with the powers that be at Rangers.
Is that Gallardo? Is that his name?
No, this is
That's
Muscat.
Kev Muscat.
Oh, Muscat.
Muskrat.
Not that we want. I don't mind talking about them. You know, all these Celtic channels that like, oh, we'll never talk about Rangers. We never watch Rangers. We're all about one club. It's a bit of a laugh.
Did anyone see the post on Twitter? It was from the Daily Record about Alex Ray is working as a hearse driver.
Yeah.
I mean, is that real, Paul?
Well, I believe so. I didn't fact check
Jesus.
it, but I retweeted it, and I just retweeted it saying these jokes are starting.
Sorry,
to
it was your
themselves,
tweet.
right?
Apologies, man. Sorry, man.
Well, there
It
you
was your
go.
tweet.
But I found it from someone else. I didn't dredge it up initially, but yeah, I just retweeted it. But I was like, yeah, these jokes are starting to write themselves, and yeah,
Alex Ray looks
barely
like
human.
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu.
Yeah. Yeah, he's barely human at best. And
barely
as we
human,
see,
driving a hearse and managing a dead club. He's perfectly fitted.
Here's
perfect.
Paddy
perfect
Lavery.
job.
Let's look at Paddy's comment, as if to show that this is the first time Paddy's been on our channel. Finnegan's Bar is owned by Mickey Burns from Glengormley. That'll be the same Mickey Burns that contributes to a Celtic World
Yeah.
and was on a couple of weeks ago.
I can't
That's
stop
right.
singing Mickey's song. I can't stop singing it.
Mickey's song was fantastic.
It was beautiful. Beautiful piece of work.
Yeah. I'll need to start
Okay.
writing. I'll need to write a song.
Who would we love to see as the next manager? Does it make any difference to you? Are there any names that worry you in any way? Or do you think it's the job that's,
Well, then
impossible
you
to
think
do
about
well?
it. Think about it, right? So they're in the semi-final of the League Cup. They're going to come second. So you're selling this to you're selling this to a manager, up and coming young manager, right? You're going to be second, right? End off, unless the perfect storm happens and Brendan leaves, or we go. Dermot Desmond's been embezzling money for years, and we'll go tits up. Excuse my French. But really, think about it. You're going to come second. You're going to have no budget. You're straight away. They have 50,000 fans a week. We have 60 plus. So that we're going to have more money. We're going to have Champions League money. Who the hell would want the job? And yet they've got, not only that, they've got 10 new players who are crap, who are on 4-year deals, and you'll not be able to move them. They've no assets. Who Jack Butland is their only asset, and he's only come in 5 minutes. I know what I would do. I would, if I was Celtic, I would go to Jack Butland. I'd say, Joe Hart, Joe, have a yarn with Jack Butland there and see if he'll come over to us and just double his wages and just two
Hot
fingers.
take of the week
Yeah.
from Brian.
But
Controversial
really,
Brian comment.
really, who could Rangers sell? Tav's done. He'll score goals. Goldson's finished. Where are their assets coming from? Where are they getting money? At least, Kent and Morelos, when they were under contract, you could have maybe got 5 million each for them, but they'd have nobody.
This is an interesting point that Strangelove the Doctor makes. If it is Muscat, and he seems to want it, and it might be, even though he's, pawn shop Ange, with that squad, can you imagine? Ange Ball with that squad.
This girl's
It's going to take a
6'4".
long time for that to.
What was
those
it?
two
The
things
combined,
to marry.
the four strikers to sign, or the 3 strikers to sign, I think something like 17 goals among them for the last season.
It's a poison
Shocking.
chalice. In my
It is
opinion,
poison.
that job is a poison chalice. Whoever takes that job is really earmarking themselves for failure, given the recruitment that they've had there, the finances they have there. There is no more confetti shares. Well, You never know. There might be more confetti share options. They've not got money to improve. They've not got any manager that comes in needs to try and get the best out of what they already have there.
I think it needs to be somebody who's desperate and has no other alternative. Like
Alan
at the end of
Pardew.
their career.
Pardew.
But yeah, somebody who's got nowhere else to turn, and they just don't care about their CV anymore. Like Big Sam and what's your man called that I showed at the start?
Lampard. Muscat.
No, the old fella.
Neil Warnock.
Neither of them care about their CV anymore. So someone who's got nowhere else to turn. But anyway,
I'd be surprised if it's Muscat. Yes, he wants a European job, but I don't like he's still battling for the J League. There's a few weeks of that to go. I'd be surprised.
Okay. This is one of my social media picks of the week. This is all this AI Brendan stuff that's going around. Have you seen any of that? And this is one of the better ones, I think, with Ibrox and flames in the background, probably because of whatever Brendan's just been smoking.
Well, we know shite doesn't burn, so it's just smouldering in the background.
And the other, we're going to go over to Paul's. Just make this full screen. You need to hear this, don't you?
You do, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope you can hear this.
7 points behind before the clocks go back, and Mickey Beale is getting the sack. They took off Yilmaz and Ryan Jack, but forgot all about the shambles at the back. Bilbao! 7 games in, 7 points ahead. The Teddy Bears have thrown their sandwiches right out their picnic.
Do we need some commentary for that, Paul?
So this is Wee Wido. Wee Wido lives up to his name, and he basically does that to all those guys on Twitter that we all read that do the follow snippets. He basically takes that a stage further and basically bands them together and does an episode of commentary where he reads them out and then adds a few extra comments, laughs really loudly, and generally rips the shit out of them. Which I actually find quite amusing. He's got a bit of an interesting backstory as well, which I'm not going to go into here. It's too long. But he's seen him pop up on a few other podcasts, and he's an interesting dude. And he sometimes gets banned from Twitter because of some of the stuff he gets up to. So he's on about his second or third profile. But Wee Wido is worth a follow if you enjoy the ripping the piss out of the rivals.
And as well as Wee Wido. Go ahead, Kaiser.
Sorry, I seen one before for Wee Wido. Just when he was talking there, he says it was comments of Seth Colvins coming out of the ground, and it says, I heard the opinions of lots of angry bears, and he had like a full set up of teddy bears, and he was like, look now, boys. It was hilarious, man. I just couldn't stop laughing at it. Brilliant.
So Wee Wido might be worth a follow, as indeed we would hope the viewers think we are. So if you haven't already, get subscribing. Let's get those numbers up. Most of the Celtic YouTube channels you watch probably have a factor of 10 or 100 more than us. So let's get it going. Thank you very much for being here. Thanks for all your comments. It's been a very interesting chat. I think we covered the game pretty well. Emotions, facts.
Kilmarnock, Gav?
A bit beside. Huh?
Kilmarnock preview?
Well, that was never in the notes, and this is not the time to bring it up because I'm just about to say goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for being here. Cheerio.
Cheers, Gav.